Are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is RobertaSulls, and this is my qualifying presentation. And it is of my development of an extensive in-house 12-week expressive arts trauma recovery group that I am developing for my thesis, which I'll in a minute. Go ahead. Through my journey called life and this educational path has led me to Prescott College, I have been able to develop Eco Expressions Healing Arts Center. So this center is to combine eco, self-sustainability, and expressive arts. For many years, Eco Expressions has been merely a concept. Prior to my arrival in Arizona about 2.5 years ago, this had just been in my mind. I had used it as a stepping stone into Prescott College, into my admissions form, saying that I want to develop this center. This is where it began, and this is where my program began. So I've always strived to obtain the most effective and efficient use of many things in my life. So merging an eco community with an expressive arts healing center seemed very appropriate for what I was doing. The Eco Expressions experience, the natural living of self-sustainable eco-community living, as well as offering the benefits of an on-site expressive arts healing center. I entered Prescott College's Counseling Psychology Expressive Arts Therapy program in 2002. With my background grounded in psychology, sociology, and expressive arts, this was very logical for me. In the spring, though, of 2014, I decided to change my major to humanities into the creative and expressive arts. This because I found that I did not need to be an LPC, a licensed practicing counselor. It wasn't necessary for what I wanted to do in my field, therefore I wasn't going to take more credits to get there. I did, however, have a passion for healing and helping people to heal, using all modalities of art, and I was searching for a way to incorporate that in everything that I was doing. So Finding Your Voice is what I've named it, and it is a 12-week arts trauma recovery group that I've been working on since 2003. When I was working with Pam and her working with domestic abuse course for counseling psychology. It was at that time that Finding Your Voice began to take its form. My work with trauma survivors began in 2006 when I was employed by the Center of Southeastern Connecticut, which is now called Safe Futures, which is a domestic violence agency that sheltered myself and 2 children 8 years previously. In the 2.5 years that I was employed with them, I held a variety of roles, which included crisis counseling, victim advocacy, and transition case manager. During that time that this program had started to percolate in my brain a little bit. I'm like, how can I help them in this community, and where can I broaden my horizon with helping domestic violence shelters, and specifically the Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut, because that's where I was living. I had begun painting a year after I left my abuser, and I'm a multimedia artist, and I found passion with every piece of art that I did. And these are 6 of the shows that I did specifically with profits donated to the Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut. I often gave 25% of my profits back to the center. And from 2003 to 2007, I was fortunate enough to be a 3,500 square foot gallery. I was also fortunate enough to fill it 5 times or more. I'm very prolific. Go ahead. My colleagues didn't stop there. I also created cards. These cards along the bottom were gala event. I don't remember what it was called. I tried locating the information. I gave several newspaper interviews. I gave audio interviews about my experiences with the Women's Center and being a survivor of domestic violence myself. I often stated that survivors of domestic violence need to find their own voices. And this is why I named my program Finding Your Voice. It is an essential part to the healing process. As a survivor, I have come through and found my own intention, My intention with all of this is to give back to those who have lost their voices just because I can. The universe has put me on this path, and this is where So in spring of 2003, I was given the opportunity to work with the Stepping Stone Shelter clients for an expressive arts therapy class requirement. I began to look for directives, and as I was searching online, I wasn't finding an all-inclusive program for anything. Trauma survivors, nothing specific to that population that I could find whole. So I started piecing things together, but for this class, I just used single directives and I didn't develop at this point. It was just still percolating in my brain. So I put that larger concept on the back burner, and this is my bookshelf of all of my books developed for eco expressions and finding your voice. And this began as a 7-week, once-a-week program, has been morphing into a 12-week intensive in-house program for eco expressions that will be designed specifically for trauma survivors. The unique incorporated within natural landscapes as an all-inclusive and multimodal arts experience, and it will allow each participant to find their inner and authentic voices. Eco expressions. This is visit the lands a couple of months ago. This is beautiful lands. So it will be situated in the mountains of western New Hampshire, within a 2,000+ acre area. The property has 15 types of trees, as many other natural resources. This is the staircase in the educational home that they have on their property. It's called Green Woodlands. So those are 15 types of trees just on the property that they use. This is the site where we'd like to start building the community center. And this is one of the many pieces of water on the property. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I didn't want to leave. While there will be two distinct facets to eco expressions with the community and the Healing Arts Center, they will be working together in various ways. The center will be the first thing to be structured, so that to provide adequate space shops for to grow. The structures built expressions will be designed with repurposed, recycled, and natural materials with the most effective and efficient use to be used. We'll be developing a community farm, as well as spaces to sell produce and wares to help the community sustain itself, as well as the Healing Center. So it's a very interesting process, and a lot of things are being woven into it. During this, we will also be employing licensed and non-licensed staff. Just for the therapeutic aspect of it, we will be working with trauma survivors. It will be necessary to have those resources on hand. So everybody has a story, but not everyone has a voice. And for the participants of this program, that story is laden with trauma, feelings of worthlessness, and often lacking hope. Their voices have been stifled, and their authentic voices have never been heard. Within the Finding Your Voice 12-week program, each participant will take part in many safe, positive, and healthy group situations, developed to integrate expressive arts within a natural landscape. The primary focus is to heal the mind and body as a whole. By presenting each participant with a broad range of mindfulness practices, such as meditation and breathing techniques, journaling, and all kinds of. When I say expressive art, I'm talking about the entire umbrella of expressive arts. If you can create any facet of art with it, we're going to try to put it in this program. This is still a developing program, so I don't have a lot of the specifics, but I know what needs to go into it. It's just about putting the pieces together at this point. So you'll hear me talk about a toolbox. And I talk about a toolbox in the sense that we are going to give participants tools, coping skills, strategies that they need so that they can leave this program and feel like that they can do these things. Because this is going to be a 12-week program. This isn't like a weekend retreat or a weekend someplace, wherever. This is an intensive program where people are going to be learning to rewire their brains. And part of this research was developed through reading Peter Levine's Waking the Tiger about trauma. And this is where a lot of this came in, and using the expressive arts and using all of it to heal the trauma, but then also using the natural landscape around us to just further accentuate all of that for a full body process. So all of the materials within Eco Expressions and for Finding Your Voice will be all natural, repurposed, recycled materials. We're not going to go to AC Moore or Michael's or whatever and buy a bunch of supplies. I'm going to learn how to make natural dyes and papers and what do we have from the earth that we can use and what recycled materials can come in that we can use. So the purpose of group work with Finding Your Voice, because it's a group program. This is not an individualized program per se. So group work will combat the social isolation by creating the sense of community for each of these participants. Finding Your Voice will create a space that reduces isolation. It will create a sense of connection, and it will allow the participants to form a common bond to help them through their healing process. It will be designed to focus on reconstructing the lives of each participant by focusing on their present lives. By promoting empowerment and presenting them with an exploration of themselves on a social and ecological level. This benefits them by allowing them to fully understand their trauma and the effects that it has had on their full lives. The shared experiences that will come from making and dialoguing about each group will allow each participant the opportunity to explore how they feel about themselves and one another. It's really necessary for the group members to participate, so it's going to be necessary to show and teach the group members how to give constructive feedback to each other, and because a lot of what's going to happen is people are going to say things that are going to hurt others' feelings. So it'll be the facilitator who will be redirecting those words and prompting the participants to reword things and maybe say things a little bit differently and maybe think about what they're saying and why they're saying it. So each participant will also need to take responsibility for their own experience. So it's going to be really also vital for them to understand their process in this whole group procession. This space, the Finding Your Voice space, Eco Expressions as a whole and the Healing Center will allow for participants to explore interpersonal relationships in safe ways and in front of non-judgmental and empathetic audiences. By providing them with these tools, as a whole, Eco Expressions and Finding Your Voice will be allowing these people and giving these people the freedom and choice and empowerment that they didn't have in their lives before to be able to continue and move forward with their lives and not be a victim, but be a survivor. So a little bit about split brain. Split brain research states the following: that the left side of the brain stores the verbal memories and the right side of the brain the imagery and all of the emotions. So Barbara Ganem, that was actually the very first book that I picked up to do any kind of expressive healing, anything. I said, oh, this looks like a great book. I don't even think I was into counseling psychology yet. She says, if emotions are held in the body and in the mind as images, then imagery rather than words would be the most direct route to get in touch with these painful emotions. She further states, when the left brain receives the right brain's message about a feeling that is being experienced by the body, it then assigns a value of good or bad, along with an interpretation of what good or bad means. Now, internal conflicts often happen with the right and the left brain and remembering things. So the left brain's limited capacity with words can be enhanced by the right brain's capacity with images. Excuse me. The right side of the brain does not judge our experiences, and its perception of these experiences that associate a feeling or emotion to the experience in the mind, and uses feeling to guide the mind through traumatic experiences, through those feelings the brain switches to imagistic thinking. So why do we need such an intensive program? In 1998, Kathy Malchiotti stated, and she talked about the inherent healing power of the creative process of healing and of art making. So I looked at that and I thought to myself, I don't really need to be a therapist to help people do art. As art awakens the mind, sparks the imagination, and it creates profound changes in those that use it. My expressive art therapist mind comes in when I say it's about the process, not the product. And I'll hear that a lot. A lot of people in the expressive art therapy hear that a lot. It's about the process and not the product. And that's really, I have people into my home and into my studio all the time, and I say, let's talk about, they say, I don't know how to make art. Well, it's not about making art. It's about the process of making art. So why don't we just think about this, and maybe I'll give a directive, maybe I'll give a color, maybe I'll give something, but it's to get them through the process, to get them through that initial stage of, I'm not an artist, but you don't have to be an artist to be successful at using expressive art. So the use of expressive art is for emotion and release, and its sole purpose is for healing. So all is provided within the Finding Your Voice program will produce emotionally charged outcomes regardless of artistic ability. And we want to make those traumatic experiences something of the past. We're not looking to keep them here. We want to put them in the back so that we can move forward. That's what I'm trying to do with these people. Nobody wants to stay stuck. By integrating the colors, the lines, the images, and the movement, to gain access to their innermost feelings and emotions, the participants will learn new techniques and skills so that they can further move forward in their lives. And by giving them these kinds of platforms, they're provided with these things so that they can use them in real life situations. Because once you're out of the program, that safety net is gone, unless you have some hanging around somewhere. All right, go ahead. So meditation, breathing exercises, and journaling are things that will be used throughout the sessions. Meditation especially because there's an arousal process with trauma survivors. And what happens is your nervous system just shifts into like this state of arousal, and sometimes you can't discharge that energy. So the meditative processes will allow you to bring that energy down and to relax your body so that you can continue on and move forward. So this is some of the overview of the program. These are the modalities, some of the modalities that I will incorporate into Finding Your Voice. And outlines per session. I thought a lot about that before I wanted to make sure that I had put 2 meditations in there because I think it's really important that when you walk into a situation that's going to evoke expression and emotion and angst and fear maybe, that you need to be ready for it and you need to put yourself in that space. But also at the end so that you can release all and close in a safe space so you're not walking out of the group with the self frazzled. So all of the group sessions are going to follow a similar outline. Through the process of Finding Your Voice, as it turns into an all-inclusive program, there will be dorm spaces built, there will be community kitchens, and there will be community kitchens. What will make this program unique to many programs is many people will shift into this program. I have developed marketing to create scholarship funds for marketing, to gaining access to domestic violence to their residents, to scholarship them in, to keep program costs at a minimum, and to gain resources so that we can continue to grow. So we have Finding Your Voice will be set up into stages. And stage 1, we talk about safety. And this gives participants the ability to establish trust and safety within the group. We'll discuss boxes throughout the stage, the idea of a toolbox, and then we'll talk about journals, and everything else that needs to happen with the process. Stage 2, we'll focus on the inner self. We'll focus on the reinvention of self. We will focus on the inner psyche. Who am I? Let's transform. This right here is the essence of what finding will be. This will be the core and what I want. Everything else is great, but this is where I want people to be. I want people to pull their voices out, and I want them to be heard. And this is where they will have that venue. And then with stage 3, we reconnect. So we will talk about reconnecting with loved ones, with friends, with family, maybe disconnecting, maybe learning boundaries, team building, and avoiding re-victimization. And then we'll also talk about aftercare. That's really important. I don't want these people to just leave the program and just drop off the face of it. So, like I said, we're going to go through stages of program development also, because unfortunately I don't have $1,000 million to just create this great program all at once. So stage 1, we're going to start with the community center, have small groups, get participants through therapy offices, and stuff like that. Stage 2, we'll add some more structures for different modalities. So what's going to happen with eco-expressions and the Healing Arts Center is that every modality will have their own building in the end. So we'll have a clay building, we'll have a painting building, and a dance building, and we'll have awesome buildings. It's going to be just, and lots of people will be employed, so this is good too. So dorm spaces will be added at stage 3, and so we'll develop for overnight stays, weekend retreats. We'll add showers and so I'm hoping that we start breaking ground in 3 years. That's my goal. But this is our development program right now. And I was going to do an exercise. Unfortunately, I don't have time. I have like 5 minutes, right? Do I have to 50 or?
I think you go to 50.
Oh, 50. Oh, great. Great. Let's get this paper. Oh, that's what you started with. And after. So why don't you just grab a piece of paper, pen and paper. If you have it, I'm very sorry. Or we can just think in our mind. We're just going to alter this for a second because this is what I do. So this is a group exercise that I would offer at one of the groups for Finding Your Voice. So we would sit down in a circle and we would have a meditation. And we would close our eyes, and I would want participants to think of the following questions. What did you do for fun? Think of and I would want them to think of something pre-traumatic. Maybe they were 5, maybe 10. It really doesn't, there's no magic number because everyone has traumatic experiences at all different times of their lives. So pre-trauma, what was your fun? What were your worries or anxieties? What did you like about yourself? Who were your friends? And what were your dreams or goals? You could probably list 10, 20 questions if you wanted to. The purpose of this exercise is to show the trauma survivors that their lives were not always shattered and broken, that they had dreams and goals, that there were pre-traumatic lives for them that weren't where they are now. So let's remember that, if possible. This isn't always possible on the first try. This may take a little while for someone to do. Their trauma may be so deep that words aren't going to happen right now. And this maybe have to correlate with some kind of an art directive or some kind of a sculpting directive or something to break that up and get out of the left brain a little bit. trauma survivor, there is a need for authentic personal identity, and it is essential for healing and reinventing themselves in a new, different, and healthy way. Finding your voice will help each participant tunnel under the surface and into the darkness where the trauma lives and help them to understand that they must rediscover the self that is hidden under all those layers. It is essential for them to understand that they are not victims, but survivors. Bruce Moon states that the act of making art is akin to a labor-intensive birthing process, full of love, labor, and pain, and that it's okay to hurt, that it's good to struggle, and that life is hard. This program will utilize the expressive arts to allow each participant to experience the process of making art in many modalities as an expression of self through drawing, painting, sculpting, dance, or music. Through the process of gaining knowledge and understanding of their own capabilities and vulnerabilities, they will leave eco-expressions having found their own voice. Thank you. And we can be found on Facebook. Any questions?
So you have the eco-expression group here currently, but you're planning on moving.
I don't have a group currently.
Okay.
Eco-expressions is my thesis.
Okay.
So if anyone's interested, that will be presented in May. Yeah, eco-expressions is my thesis. It's been in development for many years now. And it's an eco community, but I wanted to put a healing art center on the property. How can you be out in the middle of New Hampshire and all that beautifulness and not have expressive art? I don't know. So these two things have just been kind of dancing with each other for a while. One will come to the forefront, and then it'll take a step back, and then now this, my qualifying paper, turned into my qualifying presentation, which is turning into a large component of my thesis because it's part of my business plan. So, yeah. But currently, I don't have any groups going. This is all design process. And Eco Expressions Healing Art Center will be my thesis presentation in May. So,
Are you strictly like limiting yourself to working with adults, or have
No.
you? Okay.
we've talked about working with all kinds of populations. With Eco Expressions, the Healing Art Center will not be limited to just finding your voice. It will be open to other things, other avenues. Maybe facilitators will come in and do a soul collage workshop, or teach someone how to do masks, or have specific workshops to come in. However, the Finding Your Voice program, their dorm space will be separate from the Healing Arts Center. It will be a separate facility. However, the Healing Arts Center as a whole will be used for other things. We have to make money, so.
I was just curious, you already have a scripted curriculum for those lessons?
Do I?
Yeah. No, so that's
That whole bookshelf that you
Okay.
saw,
Uh-huh.
what I was finding and what I've been finding is I found all of these great directives. Now it's putting them all together into a compiled program. And I'm not one to reinvent the wheel. So, but in a way, I'm just I'm inventing my own wheel. Because I'm using all of these different books, The Artist's Way, and Barbara Ganneman, and Kathy Malchiotti, and Bruce Moon, and Peter Levine, and all of these wonderful people that have done all of this work with trauma survivors and art, and just putting it in one big package.
So do you eventually plan to have that? Like this is the curriculum and this is what we do each week and how it goes?
There will be a curriculum.
Okay.
Yes, I will be planning out a specific curriculum per the stage. I'm not exactly sure how many weeks per stage. That middle stage, I think, will take up a good core part of it. That's still a work in progress.
Do you see them meeting every single day for 12 weeks?
Yes. This is an intensive it will develop
Right.
into an intensive in-house program, much like a recovery center.
And for that, the Finding Your Voice, that's for domestic violence survivors.
That is for trauma survivors.
So trauma.
So my work started with domestic violence
Oh, okay,
survivors.
cool.
But now I'm opening my horizons into working with trauma survivors as a whole.
Okay.
I have two resources that I've investigated in the past, and I think they may help you. You might want to have heard of them. One is, I loved how you used, you separated all of these people from those environments that maybe weren't healthy, and then you amazing program, you created a safe space, a positive learning environment, and you have this second stage where you're just in this amazing, supportive environment. And then I loved how I wrote a note about transference back into those communities that may not have been this healthy. And it follows Victor Turner's rites of passage stages of separation and then liminality and then reintegration. And I think it might help you a little bit if you want to look
That'd
into
be a
it.
great resource.
It's an anthropological theory, but it followed it so smoothly that I think it would be really interesting for you to look into. And then when you were talking about the New Hampshire scene and how can you not do art in such a cool place, right? I don't know if you've heard of ecological identity and Mitchell Thomas Show, I think. But he talks about all of these really cool ways about how to integrate people's identity into the natural world and how you can find those in any place. So you can find it in the woods of New Hampshire or you can find it in the tree in your backyard. And I think that would be a really cool thing to check out too.
It would, thank you.
What are some of the ways that you can imagine funding something like this?
That's been the fun part.
Yeah.
I have thought of a lot of marketing strategies. One is to target large companies like Whole Foods, anybody that sends their teams off to go team building. Mom works for Whole Foods, they send her everywhere. They do all kinds of cool stuff. So that's one of my marketing strategies. Contact these big companies saying, hey, how about you pay this much money and we'll barter in a couple different ways. You can either send X amount of people for these amounts of retreat hours or days. You can help fund, so you can help me get all of this material from Brazil to New Hampshire, and pay for that and this. So there are lots of different ways to barter. I'm thinking about looking into e-commerce and Bitcoins and doing a more of an off-the-grid kind of a business plan because I'm not going nonprofit. This is a for-profit business because I want to offer scholarships and I have student loans. I mean, really, bottom line, we go into business to help people, but we also have to help ourselves. And then for the larger community, workshops will be offered to the population as a whole. So Joe wants to bring his daughters to, clay night at Eco Expressions. Hey, let's go, and we'll spend this much money and we'll go there. Or we'll do retreats. So there are lots of different ways that I'm looking at gaining funding for this. Fortunately, the land is not as expensive as it was. It's very reasonable. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So I'm very pleased.
In terms of the participants and the trauma survivors, how will they be selected, screened, solicited? And will that be through therapists, through other shelters?
Therapists, domestic violence shelters, there will be.
That comes with them as well, or?
Well, there will need to be some kind of an intake form so that they are appropriate for the program. Due to, I'm not licensed, I don't know if I'll have a licensed clinical director. I'm not exactly sure of all those components at this point, but I do know I have to cover my bases as far as liability goes. So if they are, say, have suicidal tendencies and are, on 600 medications, maybe they're not appropriate for the program because they may need too much of a higher level of care. This is going to provide a lower level of care. It's not in the high range, maybe low mid, but it's manageable with trained facilitators, therapists, people on staff that know how to handle crisis situations.
So it's more of a residential,
Yes,
transitional program.
correct.
And you want, so maybe they'll have done intensive, inpatient, for example, and then transition to your
That's a possibility.
outpatient.
Yeah, there are a lot of different variables to look at when we look at participants. And the biggest one is safety.
Just in terms of who your participants will be, moving from your domestic violence background to trauma in general, are you opening up to both genders or just
Yes, I am.
like a women's?
Both genders and all ages. So we'll have, and obviously they won't be mixed genders and ages for groups. We'll section it out somehow. I do want to open it up to as many people as possible because there are so many people out there that need this help. And I want to offer it because I can, because this is where my path is leading me. I've tried to stray off and go into other stuff, and it keeps pulling me back. So this is where I need to be. So, any more questions? And these are my references. And I have lots more to add after all of this is done.